Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. Book review. By the way, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Heinlein? I don't know. Okay, right. So I had finished recently, on a friend's recommendation, another Robert Heinlein book called A Stranger in a Strange Land. And I returned it to my friend and I said, yeah, you were right. This was interesting. And then he said, well, if you like that, then take this one. It gave me another book, Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. So here I am with another Robert Heinlein book review. It's interesting, Robert Heinlein's politics. So A Stranger in a Strange Land, which I reviewed previously, is all about a book that's advocating kind of free love and communal living and was extremely popular in the 1960s with the hippie generation. Starship Troopers was, it's often accused of being a fascist book or being a militaristic book. Now, how to reconcile this, I don't know. There are people on the internet, I think you can read about this on Wikipedia, who do try and kind of make a thread of ideological consistency between Robert Heinlein's books. And I suppose there's nothing, you could have the free love and the militarism, they're not inherently contradictory, even though in real life they do seem to be advocated by people on different sides of the political spectrum. But that's just kind of our world. You could merge them. I don't know. I find it easier to just kind of judge each book as its own thing and not worry about the consistency between Robert Heinlein's books. So anyways, forget everything about the previous book. Actually, I think previous meaning I read it previously. I think in terms of publishing order, Starship Troopers was actually published first in the 1950s. Forget everything about Strangers in a Strange Land. Just focus on Starship Troopers now. This is a book that's often described as militaristic, fascistic, maybe. It's definitely kind of right-wing. And of course, it's most famous nowadays for the movie. Movie came out in 1997, and when it first came out, nobody knew what to make of it. I think this was partly because the marketing department marketed it as an action movie. They didn't market it as a satire. But it was a satire, and it took people a few years to kind of fully realize that, and I think I'd include myself in that. But yeah, nowadays it's widely recognized that Paul Verhoeven was satirizing the original book with his movie. Was doing a bit of research on this. Roger Ebert, if you read his review of the Starship Troopers movie, he mentions the book. And he says that when he was in grade school, he loved the book and he read it to the point of memorization. On the other hand, Paul Verhoeven, the guy who directed the movie, apparently he found the book so depressing that he claims he couldn't even finish it. Which is why he did the movie as a satire on the book. So, after reading the book myself, I kind of find myself more on the side of Verhoeven. Now, Roger Ebert, to be fair to him, Roger Ebert says in his review, I loved it when I was 11. Now that I'm an adult, I'm more critical of it. But he does say there is a lot to kind of love about it when you're 11. Now, I can see this kind of. No doubt there are many elements of this book which would be extremely cool to an 11-year-old boy. I mean, there's space commanders fighting giant spiders. How cool would that be if you read this book in the 1950s as a school kid? The problem is, there's also a lot of preaching in this book, which kind of ruins it as a space fantasy. So the book opens with a really great action scene. But then, after the action scene is over, it flashes back to the decision of the main character to enlist in the military. and then kind of the first few days of the military training are all kind of described in the flashback. And in this military training, we get to listen in on the lectures that the military teachers make about why Marxist economics makes no sense, the necessity of capital punishment, the importance of publicly flogging juveniles, how social workers are destroying society through their good intentions. Just a lot of kind of right-wing preaching is just permeating this book. Actually, it's kind of the main focus of long stretches of this book, is just listening to these lectures. Then graduation happens, so the characters go off to fight, and so there's kind of an interlude where kind of more action scenes come in. But then they go back to training to become officers. And then we get even more preaching on topics like why only veterans should be able to become citizens. Now, Roger Ebert says in his review, quote, Heinlein was, of course, a right-wing saber-rattler, but a charming and intelligent one who wrote some of the best science fiction ever, end quote. My own take on this is Heinlein is definitely a talented writer, and his action sequences can be really good when he gets around to them. And if the book was kind of more action and less right-wing politics, I could have easily forgiven it. The problem is there's only a little bit of action sequences, and the rest is just preaching, just kind of talk. And I didn't much care for the politics behind the preaching. So I didn't particularly care for this book. Although definitely it has to be acknowledged that Heinlein can write good action sequences when he wants to. It's just a pity that there wasn't more action in this book and that there was just kind of so much politics in it.